Well, it was like a socialist State of the Union. Did you see this? New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani giving an America 250 address this morning as his influence within the Democratic Party certainly continues to grow. The socialist mayor spent much of his speech focusing on what he says are America's failures.
As we mark 250 years, what do we see? We see a city of contradictions within a nation of contradictions. We see the wealthiest country in the history of the world, one where children go to sleep hungry while the world's first trillionaire hungers for more. We see monopolies that dominate every industry and oligarchs who buy elections. We see masked agents terrorizing our streets, eating food cooked by our undocumented neighbors before spiriting them away in unmarked vans.
This as more Democrats who are moderates try to hit the brakes before their party takes a hard left turn fully into socialism.
Party may have to splinter. People always talked about the end of the two-party system. We might see it pretty close to the end of it.
Democrats are going off the rails. They're not even focused. What matters to people is affordability. And Democrats right now are focused on two things. They're focused on anti-Semitism and socialism.
If less than 45% of Democrats are even proud to be an American, and that's why they are nominating people that are an avowed communist and have deeply anti-views. So for me, that's distressing to me as a
Senator,
Democrat.
Jesse, Mayor Mamdani gets a lot of media attention because of the theater that he's able to produce, like the social media, the scene. We talk about advance work, right? Like if you want to try to upstage Trump on America 250, he's going to Mount Rushmore and he's having fireworks, and you're sitting at a desk, and nobody knows that that's George Washington's desk. I mean, talk about it. It seems like a little awkward to just have people standing behind you that aren't really sure why they're there.
Yeah, this speech did not live up to the hype. This guy built this thing up like this was the State of the Union on July 4th. And he bombed. I mean, this thing was so boring, so tedious. And then like you said, the lighting was dark.
Yep.
There was no color. You had immigrants standing around him like this, like
with a tiny little flag.
It's like, oh my God, you could have been so much better, because the guy's talented. He has a decent personality, but this thing did not deliver. I felt nothing.
Yep.
At least when other politicians talk, I feel hate, I feel happiness, I felt empty inside. Maybe it's because he's so young and has literally done nothing before with his life that didn't feel like there was anything behind it. Kind of felt like he was the first Muslim mayor of New York reading a speech written for the first black president. He was trying to be Barack Obama. But Barack Obama, he'd say that stuff was wrong with the country, but then he'd bring you up and then take you higher. This guy brought you here and then took you down. Aesthetically, you're looking at a guy with a beard sitting still like this, surrounded by immigrants, and he's saying, "You're racist, and we're coming for you." That's how a lot of America saw that speech. So I got to say something, Mamdani. Calm down, Mamdani, all right? Relax. No one's afraid of you. We don't like communism, and we're going to beat it.
One of my favorite comments this morning was from Matt Whitlock, Joey, and he said that it was a Dependence Day speech, not an Independence Day speech.
You know what's so funny is he's using, I guess those are recently naturalized citizens standing around him.
And welcome.
He's showing off the people who did it the right way to protest getting rid of the people who won't do it the right way. The irony here is the people around him are not under any pressure by the Trump administration to get the hell out of the country. Now, some of their family members, if they're hiding in a closet, may be, but you know what? That's the risk they took. He talks about patriotism. He wants to give his definition of patriotism. He talks about how it's like continuing to challenge the country because you don't like it. It's like, no, bro. Patriotism in the way that we're celebrating it 250 years is being willing to give everything you have, your time, your wealth, your flesh, for this cause, for this country. Who's the last great Democrat? Maybe JFK, Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Democrat president, Harold. But this idea of selflessness, of course, there's a limit to it. Of course, skeptical of those in power of you and of wars and things. But there is a moment you can take a break and say, what a beautiful country that all those people standing around him, whatever their background and origin, are naturalized citizens. This is a country where you can do that. This is a place that is the most prosperous place of its size and freedom in the world, and you can still get a pass to live here. The fact that it's even available at all is a miracle. It's huge. And what does he want to do? He wants to tell you how bad we are, because that's a wave they get to ride, regardless of how it crashes on the shore. They don't care what it destroys when it lands. It's just they get to ride it to power on the way. I mean, you know, he's not worth but a couple $100,000. Thankfully, his parents are worth upwards of $10 million. He's not gonna, you know, be in a bad spot anytime soon. But you know, God forbid.
Yeah, we see a pattern.
Yeah, God forbid you turn your AC down.
Harold is kind of wild. He's 35 years old. He's a Ugandan immigrant. He never held a real job in his life, finds himself the mayor of the most powerful city in the world, and then sits there and tries to say to Americans over 250 years, you've not lifted anybody up? How's that?
You know, I agree with, he was wrong. I agree with Jesse. I'm accustomed to listening to people speak across the political spectrum. Some I agree with, some I disagree with. But I'm always lifted up even by the ones, and many times by the ones I disagree with, because I think of the great Ronald Reagan, who oftentimes, I was much younger, but I didn't always agree with all of the domestic policy. But when he talked about tearing down walls, when he talked about governments go to war when the price of aggression is cheap, when he talked about the need for us to invest in our future and invest in our military, those were things that could unify the country. You may have some disagreement, but to Jesse's point, he took you where he wanted and he lifted you up. We lost a great civil rights leader, Jesse Jackson, a few months back. Whether you liked him or didn't like him or agreed or disagreed with him, his speeches tried to lift us all to a better place. That speech, I agree with Jesse, I didn't quite understand where he was going with the speech. If he was going to promote some ideas, and maybe he doesn't have successes, to your point, Dana, there in New York yet, where he can say, we're doing this in New York, Mr. President. I'm asking and challenging you, if you believe in the greatness of America, if you believe in the majesty of America, if you believe that all men are created equal, then follow this New York initiative that we have. Follow what we're proposing to do with kids. Follow what I thought, Johnny, your point about these are people that did it right, and he's out saying we want to abolish an organization that I think has been mismanaged. But you don't abolish it. This is an organization, ICE, that wants to keep us safe. And if we need to reform it, then we should reform it. I just think on a day like today, a 250th anniversary, I don't mind dissenting voices. In fact, I welcome them. But if you're going to be nothing but a dissenter and a hater, wait till July 5th or 6th.
Give it a day.
Kellyanne, that's not what he did today. As a professional communicator, I imagine that you think it's a little bit like malpractice, what he did. That's not a hard speech to write. Even if you wanted to criticize the country, you could have done it in a different way.
This was a huge failure, but this is what he's accustomed to. I actually think he was trying to recreate the five. He's the Jesse Waters in the middle, and they figured, let's just triple the number of people. But seriously speaking, he's a creation of social media. These are creation of living online. 30 years ago, you would not have a Zohran Mamdani. You wouldn't have these other crazy people from the squad. They live online. They always have a microphone in their face, and they don't really get a lot of power here in Washington. They're gaining power now. But I think that negative Nellies sell, negativity sells in small bites. It doesn't sell to an optimistic, patriotic America. We tend to elect people, particularly for president, who we see as more optimistic and just more joyful. There's been 2 exceptions to that since 1960. And I just don't think it's going to sell. Also, I just want people to understand the Democratic Party that Harold represented, that I grew up around, it doesn't exist anymore. The Democratic Party is at war with itself. And what is the war? It's not, you want to cut taxes, I want to raise them. It's, we need to be less patriotic, more hateful toward America, more socialist-leaning, Medicare for all, not respect the vets in the military, let alone fund them, not back the blue, criticize them. And anti-Israel is the cost of admission now. It is a cost of admission. And in addition to being annoyed by all the substantive things they say and don't say, I feel like we should have this constitutional amendment. We should have this requirement that if you're going to be in Congress, you cannot be staring at your phone to read things other people read. You got to be able to look up and speak to people. So this guy obviously is using notes and a prompter. Look, I'm going to bet on America every time. And to your point, being miserable July 5th and 6th, I'm worried that these same people are denying 9/11 and saying it was justified or we deserved it or it didn't happen, it was an inside job. They now want to represent us here in this town, steps away in the U.S. Capitol. That is a complete disgrace. We're on the doorstep of that 25th anniversary. And I want people to think about this. They want to rage against the machine. They want to yell at the man. They're against corporations and bigness. You have to think about what we're doing here. they're not criticizing. They're not criticizing this country and the Constitution, the 56 signers. They're trying to convert this country to something else. They're not disagreeing, which is our right as Americans. They're trying to destroy. That's different.
I'm thinking about that anniversary, too. It's right around the corner. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.